Good evening, sir. On behalf of Indian teacher education community, I welcome you today to this lecture. You can go ahead, sir. Please
Thank
start.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Friends, before I start, I'm extremely sorry. Today I was extremely busy because PhD biology is there for the PhD entrance. So I'll not be able to show you the PPT, but definitely whatever today I'm going to share with you, I'll prepare the PPT and in the end, definitely I'll send you. So today what I'm going to do is this, I mean, more or less, right? Uh, it will be an extempo kind of thing that I'll share with you. Uh, 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 the topic that I have chosen for today's discussion is uh, as it was scheduled, and we all know phenomenology as a research method, okay, or phenomenological research method, you can say. Fine. So, but to understand phenomenology as a research method, it is a very important to understand phenomenology as a philosophy first, right? Because primarily it's a philosophical concept, and then later on, people thought that why not this method should be used for the research purpose as well. So what I'll be doing is this, that I'll be sharing with you the basic premise of uh, the phenomenology. And as far as the basic premise of philosophy is concerned, and particularly philosophy of phenomenology is concerned, that is, I mean, what are the major components or the basic structure on which the edifice of phenomenology as a research method is based upon? So phenomenology, I mean, almost all the phenomenologists, whether the Martin Buber or Jean-Paul Sartre or Soren Kierkegaard, those who are considered the existentialist, primarily the Husserl, um, mm, etc., and etc. How do they look, or even Maurice Merleau-Ponty, Martin Heidegger? I mean, all these people, they are associated with the concept of phenomenology as a movement. So, phenomenology usually attributed to Edmund Husserl, and in the early 20th century, and it was greatly extended by people like Martin Heidegger and Maurice Merleau-Ponty, and many other. Phenomenologists see their inquiry more specifically focused on the phenomena of consciousness, primarily phenomena of consciousness. The significance of, I suppose if I talk from the perspective of education, then it is education in perception. So primarily, yes, as a larger discourse, the philosophy of phenomenology research focuses on the phenomena of consciousness. At the same time, suppose from the education point of view, if I have to talk about, then it is significance of education in perception, not significant of education as such, or education as education. And third thing, which is very important from the philosophical point of view of phenomenology, is the development of meaning in concrete individual experience. I repeat, development of meaning in concrete individual experience. So suppose for the time being, if we forget about what you call the educational domain, or the psychological domain, and then we look at that what is the basic structure on which the edifice of phenomenology as a research method is based on, and that is phenomenology of consciousness, number one, and number two, the development of meaning in concrete individual experience. You remember the study I said, why not some people should understand how it feels to be a student, how it feels to be a researcher, how it feels uh, a student who is capable, not into the, but not in the uh, uh, mainstream, etc., etc. And there are some book friends, and along with phenomenology, existentialism as a research methodology is also very popular, but we haven't included this. But people usually, those who talk about the phenomenology as a research method, they talk in unison, phenomenology and existentialism both. So existentialism offers a puzzling, right, array of interpretations. So it is often difficult to sort out a consistent set of meanings. So who are the people who are influenced by the phenomenology but worked simultaneously? Sometimes they are considered as the uh, existentialist. Sometimes they are called as the phenomenologist. So one of the greatest name is Nietzsche, F.W. Nietzsche, uh, Frederick Wilhelm Nietzsche, uh, late in the 19th century, a German philosopher, and Nietzsche attempted to establish a new concept of morality that went beyond traditional, Judeo-Christian morality. Why? Because he felt that traditional morality had tamed us too much, okay, making us weak. And that's why I'll suggest you please read one book. I like this book very much. And the name of the book is Thus, perhaps I must have mentioned this book in my presentation. Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And when you say thus spoke Zarathustra, that's I mean Nietzsche has written so many things, but this is the book which I like the most. Right? He In this book he has explored the individual transcending conventional social values and becoming a superman. And I mean, a kind of being beyond the confines of conventional. Okay, and then again he has expanded this in another book, Beyond Good and Evil. This is another book, and there is another one, Towards a Genealogy of Morals. And then he has written one is known as perhaps The Will to Power. Uh, he explored the political ramification of his ideas and favored a leadership of exceptional people who would create and define values for others. Like, how come the mediocre people, below average people, people who themselves are morally corrupt, and they will advocate about the that what kind of moral life others should live. But anyway, I'm not going in that detail. Then, as I said, there was a person called Soren Kierkegaard, and Kierkegaard chose, instead of search out individual truth by which he could live and die. Okay, and Kierkegaard category of philosophy study is the lonely individual against an objective and science-oriented world. Okay, and that's why Kierkegaard, in his writings, has argued for the subjective individual who makes personal choice and echoing the scientific demand for objective proof. Fine. So Kierkegaard was like Nietzsche was concerned about the being, and this is a very famous book by um, the phenomenologist Nietzsche, or existentialist Nietzsche. But the Kierkegaard was just opposite to that. Kierkegaard was not concerned with the being in general, but with the individual human existence, and that's more important. And he believed that individuals are confronted with choices in life that they alone can make, and for which they must accept complete responsibility. So once you have made a choice, you cannot say, oh, it was a bad choice. No, whether the choice is good or the choice is bad, once you have made the choice, then then it's your responsibility. You have to own it. Okay. So he believed that individuals are confronted with choices in life and that they alone can make and for which they must accept complete responsibility. So Kierkegaard described three stages on life's road. The first is he calls it aesthetic stage. Second is ethical stage, and third stage is the religious stage, right? So and anyway, so Kierkegaard believed that as far as the education is concerned, you'll be surprised to know education should be subjective, not objective, devoted toward developing individuality and the individual's relationship with society and with God. Then there was another thinker known as Martin Buber, and famous book I and Thou. Um, uh, so he in this book he talks about the mutual respect and dignity among all human individuals, so which seeks to set the heart of human relations. In this book, particularly I and Thou, I remember just almost 15 years back, and Department of Philosophy, University of Delhi had organized one international seminar on the concept of I, we, and they, a symmetrical relationship. So that time the head of department was Professor Bohra. Some of you might be familiar with his kind of writing. He usually writes in Times of India under Speaking Tree column. And I had gone to that department to discuss about the epistemic of ethicality, right? I mean, from the ethical realism point of view. So there only he asked me, why don't you participate in this? And please give me one. Maybe sometimes next time when actually we will be organizing the workshop, I'll share with you. So here he talks about the subjective reality of each individual and is discounted or ignored, then human beings will continue to suffer from the absurdities in which they are caught. And I thou relationship between, suppose, let me take the example of I want to understand the relationship between teacher and the student. You'll be surprised to know, or particularly my education friends will not be surprised to know, most of the teacher-taught relationship study has been conducted in the world from the psychological point of view, not from the relational point of view. That the kind of relation that that is that takes place in that. It takes place. So in keeping that in my mind, right? Uh, um, uh, I think that if I have to understand the relationship study, or if you have to conduct any relationship study, what you should do is that we should try to understand the phenomena of relationship, not only between the student and teacher, even between the two individual, from the perspective of relational rationality itself. And that's why this book is completely different from the rest of the people, even Edmund Husserl, or you say Nietzsche, or Morley Ponte, and that's why Martin Buber is completely different. And those, some of you might be interested to understand the relationship study between the teacher and the students. Uh, Please read this book, I and Thou, written by Martin Buber. Then there is another person called Martin Heidegger. You know, I'll be talking very shortly about the hermeneutics. There is within phenomenological research methodology, there is a called hermeneutics study. And he was the champion of, Martin Heidegger is considered the champion of hermeneutics. And you all know what is hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is the theory of interpretation. No? That what is it that motivates you to interpret in a certain way? Is it your ideology? Is your psychological understanding? Or is it your background? Or or your unconscious set of mind that you possess? What is it? Right? So he is the man whom Martin Heidegger, he is responsible for bringing hermeneutics study as a phenomenological research method in across the discipline, not only in education, psychology, philosophy. People say, even you'll be surprised, in sociology and anthropology, people are using this. So Heidegger devotes a great deal of space for this. And Heidegger is intent and purposes to investigate being. Again, the kind of question was raised by Nietzsche. Heidegger again say, no, for me, being is important. Let me explain why time and again I'm referring the concept of the being. See what happens. People say, you ask any teacher, and that what do you do? People say, oh, I teach physics, or I teach mathematics, or I teach chemistry. But they forget that, of course, they teach the subject, but they teach to whom? They teach students. So you have to impart the knowledge of physics or chemistry or mathematics, but you should not forget that all these knowledges of a particular discipline is for whom? For the student, for the subject. So subject has to be in the center. And that's why people like me and many others, perhaps I'm influenced by Martin Buber, uh, Heidegger, Soren Kierkegaard, that it's not that you don't teach what you know, friends. You teach what you are. It means teaching is primarily a function of being. And that's why, suppose, who should become a teacher? Or who are the teachers? Why not you do phenomenological research? I'll be talking about that. Let me first talk about some of the thinkers who have written about this. So being and his analysis largely rest on the individual interpreting and constructing a personal world of meaning. There is a word or there is a concept, and each concept has a meaning. And who gives meaning to that concept? I and you, the society at large. But I'm not interested in society at large. How individual constructs the meaning of that, or how individual gives a personal interpretation of that meaning. And so phenomenological research will help you in that. So individual existence, or you can say being in the world, is comprised of what? And phenomenological research will help you in that. You know, if you read Martin Heidegger, you will come to know that the first of these individual experiences, which the term he has used is called unwelt. Umwelt. UMWELT. That surrounding environment. This is the word he has used. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about Umwelt. I'm not going to explain Umwelt because the objective experience, right? Then there was another figure, Sartre. And Sartre, you all know whose full name is Jean-Paul Sartre. He was a French, and he used to say, Sartre should not be known by the France. France should be known by the Sartre. So if you read very minutely Sartre's work, I mean, I was amazed to see that he is one of the constructivist thinkers. But neither in the West discourses of education, nor in India or somewhere else, Sartre, even in my book, like on constructivism, I haven't included Jean-Paul Sartre as a constructivist thinker. But he is a constructivist, and I can show you that why he is a constructivist. Because when he talks about the construction of the meaning, so any person who is interested in the construction of something, okay, and that may be considered as the constructivist. And you know his Sartre's famous word. Sartre states that existence precedes essence. I repeat, existence precedes essence. So it means that if we are indeed without meaning when we are born, we can fashion our own meaning in the world in a way we see fit. So always we give the meaning to the world according to our. So Sartre sees science as a human creation. You know, everybody says science has time and again says science is nothing, something very objective comes from third world or comes from, the third eye. No, science and scientific phenomena, or even the interpretation of scientific phenomena, is a human construction. And that's why human creation. And that's why I call him one of the pioneer constructivists among all the philosophers. Unfortunately, that time I was not aware of this interpretation of Sat, and so I could not include when 2005 I was writing this book. Anyway, friends, so in short, many more things that I wanted to share with you, but I won't take much of time because half an hour we are going to complete, friends. So in short, I can say that, one of the major premise to live in this world is that everybody should try to live on the basis of, I'm using a phrase, presupposition-less perception. I repeat, presupposition-less perception. Now you'll say, okay, can you explain what is this? It means, I'll give you a good example. I'm sorry, मुझे मालूम है कि कुछ हिंदी माध्यम के भी छात्र हैं. जो कुछ मैंने कहा उसका थोड़ा सा संक्षेप में मैं कह दूं कि जो ये फिनोमेनोलॉजी का जो मूवमेंट है, जिसको हिंदी में अपघटनवाद कहते हैं, उसकी जो है कि जब हम किसी अनुभव से गुजरते हैं तो उस अनुभव का हम व्यक्तिगत अर्थ क्या लगाते हैं या क्या देते हैं, एक तो ये बात है. और इसकी शुरुआत हसरत ने की थी, और उसके बाद उसके जितने लोग, मॉर्ले पॉन्टे हो गए, मार्टिन बीबर हो गए, हाइडेगर हो गए, इन सब ने अपने अपने तरीके से, मेन चीज वही रहा, थोड़ा थोड़ा हट के देता रहा. जैसा मैंने कहा कि हाइडेगर बाद में हर्मेनोटिक्स की ओर चले गए एग्जिस्टेंस को पढ़ते पढ़ते. तो जो मैं अंतिम वाक्य अभी मैंने कहा था कि everybody should try to live, if you really want to live according to your own being, then on the basis of what? On the basis of presupposition-less perception. What is this? तो इसका बड़ा अच्छा मैं एक छोटा सा उदाहरण आपको देना चाहूंगा कि देखिए क्या होता है कि कल्पना कीजिए कि आप में से कोई व्यक्ति बैचलर है और अचानक से शाम को आपको कहा जाए कि देखो कल हम लड़की को देखने चलने वाले हैं, जिससे तुम्हारा फ्यूचर में अगर सब कुछ ठीक हो गया विवाह होगा. या किसी लड़की को अचानक से कह दिया जाए कि कल एक लड़के वाले तुम्हें देखने आ रहे हैं. नाउ क्या लगता है आपको कि माँ बाप को तो ये लगता है कि दोनों एक दूसरे को पसंद कर लें और शादी हो जाए. अब लड़के और लड़की के दिमाग में क्या चलेगा द मोमेंट जब उसको पता चलता है कि आज वो अपने एक साथी को देखने जा रहा है, ठीक है, जिससे उसकी शादी होगी, या वो देखने वाली है जिससे उसकी शादी होगी, जो उसका फ्यूचर, खासकर इंडिया ऐसे सेटअप में जहां बहुत कम गुंजाइश होता है कि आप डिवोर्स दे दें और उसको रेस्ट ऑफ द लाइफ वो रिश्ते को निभाना है. एक्चुअली होता क्या है, क्या होने लगता है? तो फिनोलॉजिकल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखिए, अब एक घटना घटने वाली है. कौन सी घटना घटने वाली है? कि लड़का और लड़की का मिलन होने वाला है, दो परिवार भी मिलेंगे, बातचीत भी होगी और ये उम्मीद होगी कि दोनों पसंद कर ले और दोनों की शादी होगी. ये तो एक घटना हुई, एक ये फिनोमेनन घटने जा रहा है. लेकिन उस फिनोमेनन का असर क्या होने जा रहा है एक लड़के के ऊपर और एक लड़की के ऊपर. लड़का जब जैसे ही उसने सपोज कि एक फोटो भी नहीं देखा है, पिक्चर भी नहीं देखी, तस्वीर नहीं देखी और देखने जा रहा है, तो क्या उसके माइंड में हो रहा होगा? ओ, पहला तो यही होगा जो कि अक्सर होता है यंग एज में कि वो लड़की कैसी दिखती होगी. And you'll know that every boy, whether he is handsome or he is not handsome, okay, imagine a beautiful girl, कि beautiful girl जो बहुत extraordinarily सुंदर हो वही मेरी पत्नी हो. ठीक? And similar thing happens in the mind of the girl also. तो क्या करते हैं आप? जैसे ही देखने जाते हैं, जो मॉडल आपके बैक ऑफ द माइंड है, उस मॉडल से उसकी कंपेयर करते हैं. क्या वो एक्स की तरह होगी? अब नाम नहीं लूंगा मैं, क्लास में होता तो थोड़ा सा ह्यूमरस और अच्छा बनाने के लिए मैं करता भी, ये तो बड़ा मोनोटोनस प्लेटफॉर्म है. या वाई की तरह होगी या जेड की तरह होगी वगैरह वगैरह चलने लगेगा. सिमिलर भाव, सिमिलर एक्सपीरियंस, अभी वो घटना घटी नहीं लेकिन उसका इफेक्ट क्या होगा उसके तरफ भी चलने लगेगा. इसका मतलब कि हम एक परसेप्शन का नमूना बना लेते हैं मस्तिष्क में और उसके आधार पे काम करने लग जाते हैं. लेकिन क्या एक्सपेक्ट करता है कि आप अपने बीइंग को रियलाइज करना चाहते हैं, आप अपने नेचुरल बीइंग में होना चाहते हैं, तो ये सलाह देता है, इस तमाम थिंग करने, हसल से लेके और मॉरली पॉइंट तक ये सलाह देते हैं कि डू ट्राई टू लिव प्री सपोजिशनलेस पर्सन। इसलिए मार्टिन ये हाइडेगर ने इसीलिए अपने हाइडेगर को बनाने वाला हाइडेगर था हसल, लेकिन वो उससे बिल्कुल अलग हुआ, कहा कि ना ये पॉसिबल ही नहीं। और ये हम जैसे लोग भी, मैं भी जब पहली बार इसको पढ़ा बीएड में, हमारे सिलेबस में था ये, और वन ऑफ द ब्रिलियंट प्रोफेसर हमें इसको पढ़ाते थे, तो वो बोले कि प्रीसपोजिशन, तो मुझे याद है कि मैंने सवाल पूछा था, तब तक मैंने हाइडेगर को नहीं पढ़ा था, इज इट पॉसिबल टू लिव ए लाइफ विदाउट प्रीसपोज परसेप्शन? कंप्लीटली नॉट, क्योंकि द मोमेंट मेरी माँ मुझे कंसीव की होगी अपने गर्भ में, और जैसे मैं आता हूं तो एक नाम दे देती है, नहीं वो मेरा नाम नहीं है, मुझे एक जाति दे दिया जाता है, वो मेरा नहीं है, मुझे एक स्टेटस दे दिया जाता है, नाम नहीं है। जैसे आपको सपोज कुछ लोग, आज मैं चाहूंगा सोशियोलॉजिकली और एजुकेशनली आप में से काम करें, दी फेनोमेनोलॉजिकल एनालिसिस ऑफ द नेम्स ऑफ ह्यूमन बीइंग्स। अब कहिएगा क्या फायदा होगा इससे? अरे इससे फायदा होगा कि हाउ योर नेम्स हेल्प यू टू फॉर्म योर आइडेंटिटी इन योर लाइफ। For example, somebody asks me, what's your name? And my official name is Arvind Kumar Jha. You'll be surprised to know, from the phonological perspective, that's not my name. Why? Because I haven't named myself. Arvind is my first name, was given my parents or anybody else in the family, I don't know. Kumar is my status. इसलिए मैंने कहा कि परंपरा को जब आप बदलते हैं तो तार्किक रूप से बदलना पड़ेगा, वरना आप ब्लंडर करेंगे। इसलिए जिन लोगों ने ये तय किया कि 10वीं के सर्टिफिकेट में आपका जो नाम है वही रहेगा, वो गलत है। आपको बताऊंगा क्यों गलत है। बिकॉज जो उत्तर भारत में जो मिडिल नेम है वो उस इंडिविजुअल के स्टेटस को बनाता है। इसलिए कुमार इज माई स्टेटस अनमैरिड होने का होता है, और झा इज माई कम्युनिटी सरनेम और गोत्र नेम। तो मेरा नाम कहाँ है? नाउ पहले क्या होता था परंपरा में कि जैसे ही अरविंद कुमार झा की शादी होगी, अब उसका नाम अरविंद झा हो जाएगा। लोगों ने परंपरा को बिना ध्यान में रखे हुए तार्किक रूप से इसको बदल दिया। तो जरा इस फिनोमेना को स्टडी करिए, फिनोमेनोलॉजिकल एनालिसिस करिए नाम को। सो माय नेम इज नॉट माय नेम, योर नेम इज नॉट योर नेम, इट हैज बीन गिवन बाय समवन एल्स एंड इट हैज डिफरेंट कोनोटेशन। लेकिन इस फिनोमेना का, इस नाम का मेरी आइडेंटिटी पे क्या फर्क पड़ता है? तो जिस परंपरा में हम सरनेम से गुजारते हैं, तो बताइए कि आपके बीइंग पे उसका क्या असर होता है। जैसे कि हमारे मित्र हैं एक डॉक्टर हरिशंकर सिंह, हमसे पहले यहाँ हेड ऑफ डिपार्टमेंट थे, और फिर हमारे बाद वही डीन होंगे। तो हम उनको कहते हैं डॉक्टर सिंह आप कैसे हैं, और जब हम कहते हैं हरिशंकर जी आप कैसे, दोनों में क्या अंतर है? when मैं कहता हूँ डॉक्टर सिंह आप कैसे, इसका मतलब उनको उनकी कम्युनिटी की आइडेंटिटी से हम उनकी पहचान बना रहे हैं। जबकि फेनोमेनोलॉजी के रिसर्च कहता है कि नहीं, इंडिविजुअल की आइडेंटिटी के आधार पे होनी चाहिए, कम्युनिटी की आइडेंटिटी के आधार पे नहीं। इसलिए आइडेंटिटी क्लैश होता है, द क्लैश बिटवीन द इंडिविजुअल आइडेंटिटी एंड क्लैश बिटवीन द कम्युनिटी आइडेंटिटी। और मनुष्य उसी दो पार्टों में टूटता रहता है, बिखरता रहता है। अब आप पूछेंगे कि सर अगर हम इस स्टडी को एजुकेशन में करें तो इसका क्या मतलब होगा? इसका होगा कि जब स्टूडेंट अपनी आइडेंटिटी के फॉर्मेशन स्टेज में होता है तो उसको किस तरह के क्लैश से गुजरना होता है। क्या टीचर की आइडेंटिटी उसके स्टूडेंट की आइडेंटिटी को इन्फ्लुएंस करता है? क्या सब्जेक्ट की आइडेंटिटी स्टूडेंट की आइडेंटिटी को इन्फ्लुएंस करता है? क्या टीचर की जो सब्जेक्टिव बीइंग है वो इंडिविजुअल टीचर के वेलबींग को अफेक्ट करता है? मैं 1000 टॉपिक आपको दे सकता हूँ। आई रिमेम्बर मैं सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ साउथ बिहार के दौरे पे था। एक बच्चे ने कहा कि सर मैंने आपके लेक्चर सुने हैं और मैं इसी में करना चाहता हूँ। तो हम लोगों ने करीब 4 घंटे बैठ के उसका जो वहाँ का ऑफिशियल सुपरवाइजर था, मैं और उस रिसर्च स्कॉलर ने बनाए। वो बहुत उत्साहित हुआ कि हाँ इस टॉपिक पे काम करेंगे, और 3 महीने के बाद आया कि सर ये तो बहुत मुश्किल है। तो मुश्किल काम करेंगे तभी तो नाम होगा। हम क्यों नाम ले रहे हैं एडमंड हसल का, मार्टिन ब्यूबर का, या नाम लेते हैं एंलो मार्ले पोंटे का वगैरह वगैरह, क्योंकि मुश्किल काम करेंगे तभी होगा। चलिए, अब मैं इस तरह से अगर करता जाऊं तो मुझे लगता है कि मैं पूरे दिन फिनोमेनोलॉजी और एग्जिस्टेंशियलिज्म की बात करूंगा, बिकॉज दैट फिलॉसफी इज वेरी क्लोज टू मी। क्योंकि मेरा मानना है कि मेरा अस्तित्व ही मेरा संसार है। मेरा अस्तित्व मिट गया तो संसार में खत्म हो गया। यही बात जॉन पॉल सार्त्र ने कही है कि फ्रांस जाना जाए सार्त्र के नाम से, सार्त्र नहीं जाना जाएगा फ्रांस के नाम से। क्यों क्यों कही उसने इतनी बड़ी बात? कभी और हम इस पर चर्चा करेंगे। तो सीधे सीधे हम चलते हैं अब, बिना टाइम को लगाए हुए, कि हम जरा समझने की कोशिश करें शॉर्ट में कि क्या हम फिनोमेनोलॉजी को फिलॉसफी के डोमेन से निकाल के रिसर्च के कॉन्सेप्ट में समझ सकते हैं? यस, वी कैन अंडरस्टैंड। See, phenomenology has evolved into a mature discipline into the last decade of 20th century, यानी 19th के बाद शुरू हो गया। And it is, कब करेंगे, किस लिए करेंगे, तो उसके बारे में बात करूं। It is to study the lived human experience, यानी मनुष्य जब जीता है, अनुभव करता है, तो उसका जो जीवंत अनुभव है उसका अध्ययन। जैसे कल आपको याद करिए, क्या अंतर है as a student experience in Rishi Valley School and as a student experience of an individual in Arvindo Ashram या Arvindo International Education, और आप देवभूमि, देव समाज का, या किसी भी सोसाइटी का। इसका मतलब ये जो स्टडी करता है, इसका मतलब जब भी आप सोशियोलॉजिकली, साइकोलॉजिकली, फिलोसॉफिकली, एजुकेशनली ह्यूमन एक्सपीरियंस के, लिव्ड ह्यूमन एक्सपीरियंस की स्टडी करेंगे, तो सबसे ऑथेंटिक रिसर्च मेथड जो माना जाना चाहिए वो फिनोमेनोलॉजी माना चाहिए, बिकॉज फिनोमेनोलॉजी हेल्प्स अस टू स्टडी द लिव्ड ह्यूमन एक्सपीरियंसेस एंड नॉट ओनली दैट, द वे थिंग्स आर परसीव्ड, कि हम चीजों को देखते कैसे हैं, एंड अपीयर टू द कॉन्शसनेस। क्योंकि इमैनुअल कांट ने भी कहा कि भाई जिस चीज को, एंड ही वाज परहैप्स द फर्स्ट वन जिसने ऑब्जेक्टिव रियलिटी और सब्जेक्टिव रियलिटी के बीच में एक समझौतावादी सिद्धांत को लिया, कि उसी चीज की आपको आप जान सकते हैं जिस जो आपके कॉन्शसनेस में है, जिसको आपके कॉन्शसनेस तक पहुंच नहीं है उसके बारे में मनुष्य नहीं जान सकता है। सो फिनोमेनोलॉजी इज कंसर्न विद द स्टडी ऑफ एक्सपीरियंस फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ द इंडिविजुअल। इसलिए बड़ा अच्छा हो, क्यों हम एजुकेशन को गांधी के चश्मे से देखें, क्यों हम एजुकेशन को टैगोर के चश्मे से देखें, क्यों हम एजुकेशन को विवेकानंद के चश्मे से देखें, या क्यों हम एजुकेशन को श्री राम शर्मा आचार्य के चश्मे से देखें, या XYZ के चश्मे से देखें, या क्यों हम एजुकेशन को किसी धर्म के चश्मे से देखें, क्यों नहीं एजुकेशन को जिस व्यक्ति के लिए एजुकेशन बनाया जा रहा है उसके चश्मे से देखें। Hope you are with me. What I'm trying to say is this, that phenomenology is concerned with the study of experience from the perspective of the individual. और उसी को ब्रैकेटिंग कहा गया है, मैं बात करूंगा उसका। क्या होता है ब्रैकेटिंग? टेकन फॉर ग्रांटेड एजम्पशंस। नहीं, शिक्षा यही है, शिक्षा ऐसी ही होती है, या शिक्षा ऐसी ही होनी चाहिए। Who are you to decide? और इसीलिए फिलॉसफी के तमाम धाराओं में फिनोमेनोलॉजी बिल्कुल अलग है। ओके, सो पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ द इंडिविजुअल, यानी ब्रैकेटिंग, और ब्रैकेटिंग मतलब टेकन फॉर ग्रांटेड एजम्पशंस एंड यूजुअल वेज ऑफ परसीविंग। हाँ, ऐसी होती है शिक्षा, क्यों ऐसी होती है, अलग क्यों नहीं हो सकती? क्या हम ऐसी शिक्षा व्यवस्था की कल्पना कर सकते हैं जिसमें परीक्षा ना हो? मैंने बहुत सारे प्लेटफॉर्म पे मैंने कहा, क्या एक ऐसी असेसमेंट के बारे में हम सोच सकते हैं जिसमें ना हमें मार्क्स देना पड़े और ना ग्रेड्स बताना पड़े, और फिर बताना पड़े कि तुम पास हुए या फेल हुए? ये सबसे बड़ी चुनौती है। वर्ल्ड के सबसे बड़े असेसमेंट में नाम होता है प्रोफेसर बॉर का, जो ऑस्ट्रेलिया टेस्टिंग एजेंसी के डायरेक्टर है। तो जब मैं सिडनी से मेलबर्न गया, मेलबर्न में उनका ऑफिस है, और उसका जो डिप्टी डायरेक्टर है उसने मेरे साथ एक पेपर लिखा है, और वो रॉटलेज ने उसको छापा है, जब हम लोगों ने इंडिया और ऑस्ट्रेलिया के एजुकेशन सिस्टम की स्टडी की है, कंपैरेटिव स्टडी की है, थैंक्स टू नीपा ने मुझे मौका दिया था उन लोगों के साथ एसोसिएट होकर काम करने के लिए। तो मैंने उससे यही सवाल पूछा। मुझे तो लग रहा था वो यही कहेंगे कि नॉलेज, अंडरस्टैंडिंग, एप्लीकेशन, एनालिसिस, दिस दैट, सॉफ्टवेयर। उसने कहा कि बॉर्ड ने मुझे कहा, वेरी सीनियर मैन, वेरी सीनियर प्रोफेसर, कहा प्रोफेसर झा आई वाज सो हैप्पी व्हेन फिल, मेरा जो को-ऑथर है उसका नाम है फिलिप डॉसन, व्हेन Phil came and Phil said that the Dr. Jha talks about the assessment and evaluation in this perspective. तो मैं तो गया तो था सिडनी में, but especially he wanted to meet me and he had organized one small lecture of mine in his institute. उसने कहा no please make a visit. तो मैं फिर फिलिप डॉसन के साथ सिडनी से मेलबर्न गया और वो लेक्चर दिया और उसमें ये सवाल उठाया था कि why we should always bracket the things, take for granted the things, taken for granted, कि नहीं शिक्षा व्यवस्था में परीक्षा ऐसी ही हो सकती है, परीक्षा कुछ और क्यों नहीं हो सकती है. Okay, so you know I am a student of epistemology. So epistemologically, phenomenological approaches are based in the paradigm of personal knowledge and subjectivity. I repeat, friends, epistemologically, as far as the system of knowledge is concerned, phenomenology as a research method is based on what? Paradigm of personal knowledge and subjectivity. The subject is the important. All education systems are for the development of the subjects. And very importantly, emphasize the importance of personal perspectives and personal interpretation. See, most of the time, when we talk in terms of objective reality, we just ignore the importance of subjectivity on the one hand and the personal perspective on the other, and particularly the personal interpretation of the phenomena. Despite the fact, majority of the advancements that have taken place not in the field of social sciences and education and other fields, but even in sciences, friends, they are the result of personal perception. Here I would like to give you some examples. Scientific advancement देखिए, ऐसा तो था नहीं कि सेब न्यूटन के पैदा होने से पहले पेड़ से गिरने के बाद धरती पे गिरते थे, ऐसा नहीं था ना. सबने उस फेनोमेना को देखा था, लेकिन जिस तरीके से न्यूटन ने उसको परसीव किया और जिस तरीके से उसको इंटरप्रेट किया, वो नॉलेज बन गया, जिसको आज हम ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्स कहते हैं. उतना ही नहीं, न्यूटन की पूरी फिजिकल साइंस की धारा को थियरी ऑफ रिलेटिविटी एंड अदर थिंग्स से आइंस्टाइन ने बदल दिया. और आइंस्टाइन की पूरी धारा को आज फिजिक्स की कौन सी ब्रांच ने बदल के रख दी है? क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स. कहा जाता है कि जब एक मंच पे नील्स बोर और आइंस्टाइन एक ही मंच पे थे और जब दोनों बात कर रहे थे कि आने वाला समय किसका होगा, तो आइंस्टाइन कह रहे थे अपनी बात और नील्स बोर कह रहे थे नहीं, क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स का होगा. तो क्यों कह रहे थे? It was entirely based on the personal perception, friends, जिसको हम रिसर्च में बिल्कुल इग्नोर करते हैं. So in short, conclusively, very powerful statement I am making, but it is, you have to judge the importance of this, that phenomenological approaches are based in the paradigm of personal knowledge and subjectivity and emphasizes the importance of personal perspective and interpretation. जो लोग हिंदी में थोड़े सहज हैं उनके मैं बता चाहूंगा कि ज्ञान मीमांसीय दृष्टिकोण से जो अपघटनवाद का जो अप्रोच है, तरीका है, वो किस पैराडाइम में काम करता है? पर्सनल नॉलेज के व्यक्तिगत ज्ञान की परंपरा में उस पैराडाइम में काम करता है. और उसमें सबसे बड़ी बात है वस्तुनिष्ठता नहीं, सब्जेक्टिविटी. एक तो ये कहना चाहूंगा. और दूसरी जो सबसे बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट बात है वो ये कि उसका ऑब्जेक्टिव इंटरप्रिटेशन नहीं या सोशल इंटरप्रिटेशन नहीं या कलेक्टिव इंटरप्रिटेशन नहीं, बल्कि पर्सनल इंटरप्रिटेशन, पर्सनल पर्सपेक्टिव. ये मैं कहना चाहता था मित्रों आपको. अब हम चलते हैं, एक फिनोमेनोलॉजी होता है जिसका नाम है ट्रांसेंडेंटल फिनोमेनोलॉजी. ट्रांसेंडेंटल फिनोमेनोलॉजी मैं जरा हसल की बात से शुरू करता हूं. जैसा कि अभी मैंने कहा कि कुछ लोग इसको एडमंड हुसर्ल कहते हैं, कुछ लोग हसर्ल कहते हैं. अब करेक्ट प्रोनाउंसिएशन आप देख लेंगे पूरा, क्योंकि आई एम नॉट श्योर कि मैं इसको हसर्ल कहना पसंद करता हूं, लेकिन बहुत सारे लोगों को मैंने सुना है वो हुसर्ल कहते हैं. अब करेक्ट क्या है आप देखिएगा. Husserl is considered the father of phenomenology, और कुछ लोग इसको father of transcendental phenomenology भी कहते हैं. क्या है? Which forms the basis of all other phenomenological methods. तो मैं एक चीज साफ बता दूं, चाहे मैं आने वाले 1 घंटे में जिस किसी का भी नाम लूं, लेकिन याद रखिएगा सब के बॉस या सबके अल्टीमेट जॉरिजिन वो हसल ही है, एडमंड हसल जिसको कहते हैं. Which forms the basis of all the other phenomenological methods. He believed that the scientific empirical approach should not be applied to human subjects in psychology and education. Why? Why? तो हसल कहते हैं कि humans attached meaning to external stimuli. एक्सटर्नल स्टिमुलाई जो है उसका अपना कोई अर्थ नहीं होता है, जो व्यवहारवादियों ने बिहेवियरिस्ट साइकोलॉजिस्ट ने दिया है, चाहे उसमें थॉर्नडाइक हो, पावलोव हो, स्किनर हो, किसी का नाम ले लीजिए. उसका अर्थ कौन देता है? मनुष्य देता है, ठीक है, ह्यूमंस देता है. एंड देयरफॉर डिड नॉट रिस्पॉन्ड ऑटोमेटिकली, जैसा बिहेवियरिस्ट ने कहा था. आज ही मैंने देखा कि आज वाइवा था, तो मैं लाइब्रेरी से आता हूँ, सुबह आते के बाद मैं एक बार लाइब्रेरी भी जाता हूँ देखने के लिए, बिकॉज किसी ने एक महत्वपूर्ण वो दिया है लाइब्रेरी कमेटी का चेयरमैनशिप का. तो एक छात्रा को देखा वो बिल्कुल अनभिज्ञ है कि उसके वातावरण में, सराउंडिंग में क्या हो रहा है, जबकि 100 से ज्यादा स्टिमुलाई वहां प्रेजेंट थे. शी वाज engrossed एंड लॉस्ट इन हर रीडिंग्स, क्योंकि उसका वाइवा होने वाला था. हालांकि कुछ बिहेवियरिस्ट ने कहा है कि यू सेलेक्टिवली अटेंड टू योर स्टिमुलाई, एक्सटर्नल स्टिमुलाई. दैट्स ट्रू. ओके, सो as humans attached meaning to external stimuli and therefore did not respond automatically. So human consciousness and the world were, in Husserl's opinion, one and could not be studied in isolation from each other. इसलिए संसार और मनुष्य दोनों को एक साथ अध्ययन करना चाहिए. संसार अलग और मनुष्य. क्या कहने मैं चाह रहा हूं कि स्कूल अलग है और छात्र अलग है? नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. या स्कूल का वर्ल्ड अलग है और स्टूडेंट का वर्ल्ड अलग है? ऐसा नहीं. और उस स्टडी में हसल ने एक टेक्निक बनाया है जिसको इपोक कहते हैं, EPOCH. कुछ लोग इसको इपोक भी कहते हैं, बेसिकली इपोक है, जिसको उसने ब्रैकेटिंग भी कहा है. क्या होता है? whereby a philosopher could purposefully set aside outside prejudices and beliefs in order to gain a clear view of the phenomenon. जिसमें अपनी कोई बायसनेस आप नहीं लाएंगे, जिसमें आप अपनी कोई बिलीफ्स उसमें नहीं लाएंगे. जब मान लीजिए मैं ये जानना चाहता हूं कि कोई छात्र एजुकेशन किसे समझता है, शिक्षा का अर्थ क्या समझता है, या कोई छात्र अपने विद्यालय को कैसे देखता है, या महाविद्यालय को कैसे देखता है, या अपने विश्वविद्यालय को कैसे देखता है, यानी उसका इंडिविजुअल एक्सपीरियंस उस चीज का कैसा है. ठीक है, ओके, एक तो ये था. तो दिस इज नोन एज ट्रांसेंडेंटल फेनोमेनोलॉजिकल अप्रोच. अब मैं बात करूंगा, जैसा मैंने कहा था कि हालांकि हाइडेगर जो थे वो हसल के ही स्टूडेंट है, उसी के डिसाइपल है, लेकिन लेटर ऑन पूरी जिंदगी वो वकालत भी हसल की आइडियाज को करते रहे, ब्रैकेटिंग, इंडिविजुअल ह्यूमन एक्सपीरियंस वगैरह वगैरह. लेकिन बाद में वो थोड़ा सा अलग हुए, जो मैंने आपसे कहा था कि when they started advocating कि प्रीसपोजिशन लेस परसेप्शन क्या था. अभी भी मैंने कहा, क्या कहा अभी मैंने आपको? अब वो कहा कि आपकी पर्सनल बायसनेस, पर्सनल प्रेजुडिस उसमें नहीं आएंगे. ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता है. जिस समय बच्चा गर्भ में आता है ना, उसी समय से वो बायस्ड हो जाता है. तो हाइडेगर ने, एंड हाइडेगर वाज स्पेशली ट्रेन्ड बाय हसल, ये भी मैं आपको बता दूं. ओके, और इसीलिए वो हसरलियन मेथड की एडवोकेट किया. लेकिन बाद में जाके he dissociated himself from this approach. कौन सा अप्रोच? ट्रांसेंडेंटल फेनोमेनोलॉजिकल अप्रोच. And he differed in the way he perceived it should be explored. For example, while Husserl concentrated on understanding individual experience through bracketing, जैसा कि मैंने कहा, Heidegger believed that it was impossible to set aside one's own presuppositions and beliefs. आप अपने presupposition को और belief को हटा ही नहीं सकते हैं. You cannot. So indeed, he believed that intrinsic awareness was fundamental to phenomenological research. I repeat. उसने कहा कि इंडिविजुअल एक्सपीरियंसेस को समझा जा सकता है, और किस टेक्निक से समझा जा सकता है? ट्रांसेंडेंटल फेनोमेनोलॉजिकल रिसर्च मेथड में ब्रैकेटिंग से. हाइडेगर ने कहा कि ये पॉसिबल नहीं है, जो मैंने आपसे थोड़ी देर पहले कहा था, और ये सवाल मैंने पूछा भी था अपने टीचर्स. इज इट रियली पॉसिबल? एक शब्द होता है वेल ट्रांसू, आपको पता होगा, जिसको मतलब होता है वर्ल्ड पर्सपेक्टिव, जर्मन वर्ड है. क्या कोई मनुष्य अपने जीवन के पर्सपेक्टिव से अलग हो सकता है क्या? कैसे होगा? तो उसको कैसे स्टडी किया जाए? हाइडेगर ने यही स्टैंड लिया अपने गुरु से अलग हटके. हसरलियन मेथड की वकालत करते करते उसने सडनली रियलाइज किया. ओके, सो he believed that intrinsic awareness was fundamental to phenomenological research. इसलिए जब आप phenomenological research कर रहे हैं तो आप देखिए कि क्या intrinsic awareness को पढ़ना है तब करिए. किसके पर्सपेक्टिव में? किसके पर्सपेक्टिव में? हाइडेगर के पर्सपेक्टिव में. कौन सा रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी फेनोमेनोलॉजी का वहां लगाएंगे? हर्म्यूनिटिक फेनोमेनोलॉजी उसको कहा जाता है. ओके ओके. He believed that जो कि मैंने अभी, and as the researcher needed to immerse within the phenomenon to gain an understanding of the experience. So there is then a shift from the transcendental approach whereby the researcher takes on the detached observer positions to the purposeful recognition of both the researchers and participants' perception. कहा कि ना 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 ना, ये गड़बड़ है, ये ठीक नहीं है. आप अपने को डिटैच होके किसी भी इंडिविजुअल के सब्जेक्टिव एक्सपीरियंस का अध्ययन नहीं कर सकते हैं. आपको उसके साथ अटैच्ड होके ही करना होगा. अटैच्ड होके करने का मतलब ये हुआ कि क्या हुआ? इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि आप अपनी परसेप्शन को भी उतना ही महत्व देंगे जितना उसके परसेप्शन को. इसका मतलब उसके संसार को सब्जेक्टिव वे में अपनी सब्जेक्टिविटी को खत्म नहीं करना है. So there is a shift from the transcendental approach whereby the researcher takes on the detached observer position to the purposeful recognition of both the researchers and participants' perceptions. एक तो ये बात है जो ट्रांसेंडेंटल फेनोमेनोलॉजिकल रिसर्च मेथड और hermeneutic phenomenological research method में difference. Another key difference between the two philosophical approaches lies with the research focus itself. क्या होगा रिसर्च का फोकस? इसलिए देखिए क्वालिटेटिव रिसर्च में आपको बहुत केयरफुल रहना होगा. जैसे उसमें होता है कि अच्छा तुम एक्सपेरिमेंटल रिसर्च कर लो और कंट्रोल ग्रुप और ट्रीटमेंट ग्रुप, ऐसा नहीं है. यहाँ पे जो आपका इरादा है, इंटेंशनलिटी ऑफ रिसर्च विल डिसाइड दैट व्हिच मेथड or which methodology you are going to use. So another key difference between the two philosophical approaches, that is transcendental phenomenological research and hermeneutic phenomenological research, lies with the research focus itself. What? Now the question is, what is that? Transcendental phenomenology taking a descriptive approach, whereas hermeneutic takes an interpretive approach. I repeat, what is the difference between the two? The transcendental phenomenology takes a descriptive approach to understand the subjective human experience or the subjective human experience, whereas hermeneutics as a phenomenological research takes an interpretive approach. ठीक है? जैसा कि मैंने शुरू में कह दिया था आपको कि देखिए जब आप फिनोमेनोलॉजिकल रिसर्च को देखेंगे तो एग्जिस्टेंशियल रिसर्च को उससे एक साथ देखना पड़ेगा. इसलिए कुछ लोग इसको फिनोमेनोलॉजिकल एग्जिस्टेंशियल रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी भी कहते हैं. कुछ लोग हाँ फिनोमेनोलॉजिकल रिसर्च को अलग देखते हैं, एग्जिस्टेंशियल रिसर्च को अलग देखते हैं. लेकिन मेरा सलाह होगा कि जो लोग या तो एग्जिस्टेंशियल डोमेन में काम करते हैं या फिनोलॉजिकल डोमेन में काम करते हैं। जैसे वन ऑफ माय स्टूडेंट्स, ही इज वर्किंग ऑन द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ एग्जिस्टेंशियल इंटेलिजेंस। हुआ क्या कि हम लोग एक दिन मल्टीपल इंटेलिजेंस पे चर्चा कर रहे थे, और मल्टीपल इंटेलिजेंस पे बात करते करते ये बात आई कि गार्डनर ने एक इंटेलिजेंस है जिसको हाफ इंटेलिजेंस कहा है। एक तरफ तो हाफ इंटेलिजेंस कहता है, और दूसरी तरफ ये कहता है कि ये वो इंटेलिजेंस है जिसके आधार पे मनुष्य अपने जीवन के सबसे बड़े प्रश्न को पूछता है। फॉर इंग्लिश स्पीकर, आई मीन English speaking participants, what I'm trying to say is that Gardner has given the concept of multiple intelligence, I must have mentioned during my talk. So there is an intelligence that is known as existential intelligence, and he calls it half intelligence, not the full multiple intelligence. But so on the one hand, he calls it a half intelligence. On the other, he says this is the intelligence on the basis of which an individual raises bigger questions related to life, like what is my life? What is the meaning of my life? How am I going to survive, etc., etc. Are you getting my point, friend? So they believe that I mean, what we believed, particularly myself, I believed that it means somewhere he is not doing justice with this concept. Anything which is a grand, which is just so grand, how can you say half? So I have asked him to do a research, theoretically and practically both, to convert half intelligence into a full intelligence, because that raises the question related to the human existence. So what I have asked him to do, though his research is confined to existential intelligence, but to read phenomenology as well. And therefore, my suggestion will be, those who will be interested in this, please read that also. So both existential and hermeneutic phenomenology built on Husserl's perception of life world, no doubt, but discarded the Husserlian transcendental approach as flawed. They believed that consciousness and self could not be realistically separated. Like my consciousness cannot be dissociated with myself, as myself cannot be dissociated from my consciousness. This perception directly impacts upon the transcendental reduction process, whereby the researcher is expected to bracket or suspend individual presupposition, which is not possible. So the existential phenomenologist reject the transcendental, or there is a word called eidetic reduction. I'll explain what is that. I'll definitely, some of the terminology that I'm using, friends, I'll be explaining. So they are mainly interested in the existential orientation of human beings towards the world. जैसे हम एक अध्ययन कर सकते हैं कि एक छात्र जब शैक्षिक संसार में एंटर करता है और शैक्षिक संसार में अपना वक्त बिताता है, तो उस संसार के आधार पे अपने लाइफ के किस संसार की रचना करता है, या किस संसार को व्यू करता है, किस संसार की परसेप्शन को बनाता है फ्यूचर में। उसको लगता है कि जिस अनुभव से वो गुजर रहा है, अगर उस संसार, एक तो वो संसार बनाता है, उस संसार को रियलाइज कर सकता है, तो ऐसे लोग रहते हैं, मैं आपको बता दूं। और जिन लोगों को लगता है कि नहीं, जिस संसार में मैं आया हूं, ये संसार मेरे उस संसार को रियलाइज करने में हेल्प नहीं करेगा, वो उस वर्ल्ड को क्विट करता है। और इसीलिए कभी कभी लोग कहते हैं, इस दुनिया में उन लोगों ने ज्यादा अचीव किया, ज्यादा इनोवेटिवली इस दुनिया को दिया और क्रिएटिवली दिया, जो स्कूल से ड्रॉप आउट हुए। चाहे वो फिजिसिस्ट न्यूटन का नाम हो, या एडिसन का नाम हो, चाहे कंप्यूटर में बिल गेट्स का नाम हो, नहीं? ऐसे हजारों एग्जाम्पल हैं अपने साथ। तो मुझे लगता है कि मुझे अगर 5 बड़े सक्सेसफुल लोग मिल जाएं और वो मुझे मुहैया मतलब वो मुझे अवसर दें, तो मैं उनका एक स्टडी करना चाहूँगा हार्मोनिक एग्जिस्टेंशियल फिनोलॉजी के आधार पे। ओके, लेट्स मूव। सो जो एग्जिस्टेंशियल फिनोमेनोलॉजिस्ट हैं, the existential phenomenologists reject the transcendental reduction, and they are mainly interested in the existential orientation of human being towards the world. भाई एक संसार है जो है, एक संसार वो है ना, संसार के अंदर हम संसार बनाते हैं। तो एजुकेशनल वर्ल्ड है, जैसे कल हम लोग बात कर रहे थे कि हम एजुकेशन वर्ल्ड के उस एस्पेक्ट से हम परिचित ही नहीं होते। और एक एजुकेशनल वर्ल्ड वो है जो इंडिविजुअल क्रिएट करता है विद इन द वर्ल्ड, जो दिखता नहीं है। So he also uses interpretative and dialectic approach to study existential orientation of human beings to us. क्योंकि some of you might be interested कि वो तरीका बताइए करने का, तो वो तरीका यही है कि अगर आप एग्जिस्टेंशियल फिनोमेनोलॉजी में काम करना चाहते हैं तो देन यू हैव टू यूज interpretative and dialectic approach to study what existential orientation of human beings towards world। ठीक है, देखिए हमने कुछ टर्मिनोलॉजी अभी यूज किए हैं, उसके बारे में थोड़ी हम चर्चा पहले कर लेते हैं थोड़ा सा, और फिर आगे बढ़ेंगे, क्योंकि बार बार वो सारे शब्द आएंगे तो थोड़ी प्रॉब्लम होगी। हम एक शब्द यूज किया जाता है इसमें, क्लस्टर ऑफ मीनिंग। तो क्या करते हैं हम, देखिए जब हम फिनोलॉजी का रिसर्च करते हैं तो जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स के स्टेटमेंट्स होते हैं, नहीं, उसको हम कलेक्ट करते हैं, क्योंकि हमें इंटरप्रिटेशन करना है, उनकी इंटरप्रिटेशन को स्टडी करना है। सो पार्टिसिपेंट्स स्टेटमेंट्स दैट एड्रेस द फेनोमेनन बीइंग रिसर्च्ड आर फर्स्ट कलेक्टेड with repetitive and overlapping statements, then delineated. So the remaining statements are clustered together into similar meanings units, और उसी को cluster of meaning कहते हैं। I repeat, what a researcher does here, participants' statements that address the phenomenon being researched are first collected. And when they are collected with repetitive and overlapping statements। होता है कुछ बात चीजें हम बार बार कहते हैं, तो उसे आप अर्थ लगा देंगे कि एक्चुअली ये क्या एम्फेसाइज करना चाह रहा है, इसके इंटरप्रेटिव वर्ल्ड में सेंट्रल वर्ड क्या है, सेंट्रल पॉइंट क्या है, एंड देन यू डेलिनेट इट। द रिमेनिंग स्टेटमेंट्स को हम क्या करते हैं, जो रिपीट हो रहा है बार बार उसको एक साथ रखते हैं, और रिमेनिंग जो स्टेटमेंट्स होते हैं उनको हम क्लस्टर कर लेते हैं टुगेदर, और उन सबको मिला के एक सिमिलर मीनिंग यूनिट्स देते हैं। सो द रिमेनिंग स्टेटमेंट्स आर क्लस्टर्ड टुगेदर इनटू सिमिलर मीनिंग यूनिट्स। सो व्हाट मे बी इन कमिंग माय डिस्कशन, आई विल बी टाइम एंड अगेन आई विल बी यूजिंग क्लस्टर ऑफ मीनिंग। अभी अभी मैंने एक शब्द यूज किया था, क्या, आइडेटिक रिडक्शन। कुछ लोग आइडेटिक रिडक्शन कहते हैं, कुछ लोग इडेटिक रिडक्शन कहते हैं। ओके, ई आई है तो मेरे ख्याल से इडेटिक रिडक्शन होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि आइलैंड का नाम इसी से है, लेकिन वहाँ ई यू है तो ई आई है। बट प्लीज लुक इन द डिक्शनरी, क्योंकि अमेरिकन और ब्रिटिश प्रोनाउंसिएशन में ऐसे शब्दों में काफी अंतर है। सो ए टर्म, व्हाट इज दिस टर्म जो अभी मैंने यूज किया, आइडेटिक रिडक्शन, स्पेलिंग है ई आई डी ई टी आई सी, आइडेटिक रिडक्शन। ये टर्म क्या बताता है, ये एक टर्म है जो ज्यादातर यूज होता है ट्रांसेंडेंटल फिनोमेनोलॉजी में। दिस इज अ टर्म व्हिच इज यूज्ड इन ट्रांसेंडेंटल फिनोमेनोलॉजी, एंड इट इज द प्रोसेस that reduces the sense the researcher makes of the experiences once his or her prior knowledge and personal opinions have been bracketed. I repeat, eidetic reduction, I'll send you also, and I'll convert all these things into PPT I didn't get time, and I most of the time I refrain using the old PPTs, no, so that I should become spontaneous. But anyway, so eidetic reduction means it's a term which is used not in hermeneutics but in transcendental phenomenology, which was originally given by Husserl. And it is the process that reduces the sense the researcher makes of the experiences once his or her prior knowledge and personal opinions have been bracketed. अभी हमने एक और शब्द यूज किया था, epoch bracketing, no? इसका क्या अर्थ है? See, the researcher purposefully set aside any preconceived knowledge or everyday beliefs he or she believes might be used to explain the phenomena being investigated. जिसको हम कहते हैं, हाँ ये तो टेकन, यानी जिसको सबसे क्रूड वर्ड इसके लिए जो है इपॉक के लिए और ब्रैकेटिंग के लिए, वो है टेकन फॉर ग्रांटेड. So what researcher does? The researcher purposefully sets aside any preconceived knowledge or everyday beliefs he or she believes might be used to explain the phenomena being investigated. I have collection of 10 phenomenological research in different fields. For example, management, nursing, education, psychology, sociology, etc., etc. And then I'll show you that, see how, I mean, what are the statements that have been given by the participants and how the researcher is bracketing it, how the researcher is epoching it. So this allows the researcher to listen and record the participants' description of an experience in an open and naive manner. इन्हें मुझे कुछ नहीं पता है, मैं नहीं जानता कुछ, फ्रेश हम सुन रहे हैं इस घटना को, तो फ्रेश इंटरप्रिटेशन क्या देंगे आप? ओके, अभी भी हमने कहा एसेंस, नो, एसे एस पर सीपी है ना, एक एसे एस पर सीपी का कॉन्सेप्ट. तो एसेंस क्या होता है? एक टर्म बार बार यूज होता है, एसेंस ऑफ लाइफ, एसेंस ऑफ ह्यूमन एक्सपीरियंस, एसेंस ऑफ सब्जेक्टिव ह्यूमन एक्सपीरियंस, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. ये कौन सी टर्म है? इस टर्मिनोलॉजी से क्या फायदा था? It is a description of the underlying structures of the phenomenon being investigated. So it includes phenomena that are universal and are experienced by all the participants. And they are uncovered by the researcher through analysis of the interview data, which contain the first-hand experiences of the phenomena described in detail by the participants. So essence का मतलब होता है description of the underlying structures of the phenomenon being investigated. जिस भी phenomenon को हम study कर रहे हैं, जिस भी घटना के हम अध्ययन कर रहे हैं, उसकी जो एक underlying structure है उसको describe करना ही essence कहलाता है. यहाँ essence fragrance नहीं है, खुशबू नहीं है, नहीं. इसलिए essence as a terminology in phenomenological research, okay, as a research methodology, the meaning is not the usual meaning. जैसे mapping एक शब्द है, ये rational एक शब्द है. अब rational number, do you think the rational number and the rationality in common sense they are same? No. ये जैसे field का concept, नहीं, एक field का concept जनरल लोगों के पास, जब हम मैथमेटिक्स में field का concept यूज करते हैं, रिंग का concept यूज करते हैं, तो वहां रिंग और field का मीनिंग बिल्कुल अलग है. उसी तरह एसेंस का अर्थ phenomenological research में अलग है. इसका मतलब होता है a description, a technique to describe the underlying structures of the phenomenon being investigated. और ये क्या करता है? उन घटनाओं को भी शामिल करता है जो यूनिवर्सल है and experienced by all the participants. ठीक है. एक और शब्द होता है, टर्मिनोलॉजी होती है, जिसको हमने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले यूज किया था. आज मैंने इंटरव्यू में उस बच्चे ने कहा कि हम फिनोमेनोलॉजिकल रिसर्च करना चाहेंगे, तो मैंने कहा बहुत अच्छी बात, यू आर द फर्स्ट वन, यू टेल मी व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय, तो मुझे लगा ब्रैकेटिंग उसको पता होगा, इपोक पता होगा, एसेंस पता होगा, तो मैंने उससे पूछ लिया व्हाट इज इमेजिनेटिव वेरिएशन. ये एक टर्म है जो फिनोमेनोलॉजिकल रिसर्च में यूज होता है, इमेजिनेटिव वेरिएशन. इसका मतलब होता है टू टेक द वेरिंग पर्सपेक्टिव्स of the participants and to unify them. मतलब वेरिंग पर्सपेक्टिव लेकर छोड़ नहीं देना है, उसको यूनिफाई करना है. कल आपको याद होगा कि जब हम मीनाक्षी थापन के उस रिसर्च को कर रहे थे, तो व्हाट शी वाज ट्राइंग टू से, वो अपने से पहले सोशियोलॉजिस्ट को कोट कर रही थी, नहीं, उन घटनाओं को समझने और एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए जिसको उसने विटनेस किया है, और अपनी भी उसका अर्थ मीनिंग दे रही है, जो यूजुअली इफ यू आर नॉट ए रिसर्चर यू कैन नॉट डू. और इसीलिए जो एथनोग्राफिक रिसर्च में एक गुड थिंकर ओनली कैन कंडक्ट गुड रिसर्च. एथनोग्राफी में नहीं है, फील्ड में गए, ऑब्जर्व किए, डेटा कलेक्ट किए और आ गए, लिखना उसका बहुत चुनौतीपूर्ण है. So this is the, I mean, again, a step in phenomenological research and follows the process of phenomenological reduction. कौन सा process, कौन सा step? Imaginative variation. So the function of imaginative variation is to take the varying perspectives of the participants and to unify them into structural themes so that they represent the essence or underlying structures of the experiences. जैसे मान लीजिए जो डिग्री देने की प्रथा है किसी भी यूनिवर्सिटी में या कॉलेज में, वो क्या है? क्या लगता है कि जब वो इंस्टीट्यूशन उसको डिग्री देता है तो उस पर एहसान कर रहा है? नहीं, वो उन तमाम प्रक्रियाओं से गुजरा, उसमें वो टॉप पोजीशन पे आया, तभी उसका एडमिशन होता है. एडमिशन हो जाने के बाद उसकी वो पूरी स्टडी करता है, और पूरी स्टडी करने के बाद वो क्या करता है? तब वो परीक्षा देता है, पास करता है. यानी वो पूरा जो डिग्री है उसका फंडामेंटल राइट है. लेकिन आप प्रोविजनल डिग्री दे देते हैं, फाइनल डिग्री के लिए क्या करते हैं? आप एक बहुत बड़ा सेलिब्रेशन करते हैं. तो एक ये स्टडी हो सकती है कि आफ्टर स्पेंडिंग 2 years एज ए स्टूडेंट इन एन एजुकेशनल वर्ल्ड, or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years or 6, how do you interpret and perceive the phenomena of convocation at personal level, not at the collective level? क्यों नहीं संसार के सारे इंस्टीट्यूशन इसको बंद कर देता है? What's that? You do a study and you will come to know. उसके बाद एक और टर्मिनोलॉजी होता है जो फिनोलॉजिकल रिसर्च में यूज होता है, उसको हम लोग कहते हैं इंटेंशनैलिटी. नो, and the concept of intentionality is a very, very central to all phenomenological research and all phenomenological doctrine, and it incorporates the concept of, आप लोगों को पता ही होगा, जिसको नॉयमा एंड नॉयसिस कहते हैं, कुछ लोग नेसिस एंड नेमा भी कहते हैं. Intentionality connects us as humans to the world around us. इसलिए कहते हैं ना कि आपने बात तो सही कही, लेकिन ये बताइए उसका इंटेंशन क्या है, आपका इरादा क्या है ऐसी बात कहने के. सो इंटेंशनलिटी, तो जितने भी फिल्मोलॉजिस्ट रिसर्चर हुए हैं वो कहते हैं कि इंटेंशनलिटी इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट or rather central to all phenomenological doctrine. Why? Because they believe that intentionality connects us as humans to the world around us, as every conscious act involves an object. Conscious act के लिए एक ऑब्जेक्ट चाहिए. अब कहेंगे ये थोड़ा क्लियर नहीं हुआ, जरा इसको एक उदाहरण से समझाया जाए. एक उदाहरण से समझते हैं, पब्लिश्ड भी है ये. For example, when I use my imagination, I can see an object such as a bird flying up in the sky. Okay. When I use my vision, I can see a cloud or my computer screen. So intentionality in the phenomenological sense does not signify an action such as something we intend to do, but rather it applies to the mental relationship we have with the world around us. And this is very important to understand if you want to see yourself as a phenomenological researcher. Do you want me to explain it, Alan? Again? I'm not going to, repeat everything, but one thing I would like to restate and reassert is this, that intentionality in the phenomenological sense does not, see, in common sense, intention means the act, intention to act upon, no? But intentionality in the phenomenological sense does not signify an action such as something we intend to do, but rather it applies to the mental relationship we have with the world around us. Okay, now there is another very important term or the concept which is used as a related terminologies in the field of phenomenological research, and that is called life world. No, I have also used several times, and I'll be using several times life world. In German, it is called Lebenswelt. Okay, and Lebenswelt, which is a life world. The Husserl, who is we have to coin this term to describe our everyday self-experience. Life world is everyday self-experience with the world around us. So for the participants in the study, this would relate to their experiences of everyday life. Suppose if I'm doing this study in a school that attempted to cater to their or typical academic needs. I'm sorry, friends, I belong to the field of education, so I'll be giving you more examples from education field. Similarly, it could be institution, any institution, not school only, any institution. Okay, so in short, you can understand everyday self-experience with the world around us is like our life world. Okay, or you can say that our life world is formed out of our everyday experience with the everyday self-experience with the world around us, vice versa. Then, just now I had used terms Nema and Nesis. Some people call it Neuma and Noesis. So, Nema and Nesis. Every intentional experience, this is what phenomenologists have told us, every intentional experience consists of two things, Nema and Nesis. What is this Nema? Noema, and Nesis, Noesis. So the Nema represents the objective experience of the object, whereas the Nesis represents the subjective experience. I'll give you two examples. Let me give you a very crude example. One is, suppose it is a mobile. So everybody will identify, oh, my mobile is in my hand. Fine. So this is the objective experience of the object. But what is my subjective experience of this object? Even the object is same, but the subjective experience of the same object will always differ from subject to subject. Okay, let me explain it with the help of another example. If all research students attend a research lecture once a week, now what will be the NEMA? The NEMA would constitute the what of the lecture. Whereas, what would be the NESIS? The NESIS would relate to how the different students perceived and experienced the same lecture. So what is the implication? Implication is this, friends, that in phenomenological research, both the NEMA and the NESIS are used to understand the experiences described by the participants. I have made the points, put the points clear. Okay. Now it's okay, still a lot of time. I'll talk about basic assumptions and exclusivity of phenomenology. So let me summarize what I presented before you as a background of phenomenological research method. First, I said the presuppositionless perception. No? So the presuppositionless as a starting point. This is the exclusivity of phenomenology, friends. Number one. Number two, the suspension of the natural attitude that changed later. The suspension of the common things or the natural attitude. Third, the life world and being in the world. कहते हैं ना, वो व्यक्ति अपने ही संसार में रहता है. अरे जो ऑलरेडी एक संसार में है वो फिर अपने ही संसार में कैसे रहता है? ऐसा नहीं है कि हिंदी में ये चीजें नहीं है, बहुत लोगों ने लिखा है इसको कि वो तो अपने ही संसार में रहता है. इसका मतलब जी तो रहा है, सांसें तो ले रहा है, वो संसार जो सबको दिख रहा है, लेकिन वो जिंदा है, जीवंत है, या अनुभव आधारित जीवन वो जी रहा है, वो एक ऐसे संसार में जो उसका अपना संसार है. सो द लाइफ वर्ल्ड एंड बीइंग इन द वर्ल्ड. और चौथी बात जो इसकी बेसिक एजम्पशन है, या जो आप कह सकते हैं एक्सक्लूसिविटी ऑफ फेनोमेनोलॉजी है, वो है नेचुरल फेनोमेनन, नॉट आर्टिफिशियल फेनोमेनन. So number one, the presuppositionless as a starting point. Number two, the suspension of the natural attitude. Number three, the life world and being in the world. And fourth, natural phenomenon. Okay, friends? और क्या है इसकी खासियत? और क्या है इसकी exclusivity of phenomenology? What are the basic assumptions and exclusivity of phenomenology apart from these four? Another point is phenomenology as the achievement of knowing. वो जानना चाहता है, इसलिए मैंने पहले कहा था कि what is this epistemological interpretation of that? Phenomenology as the achievement of knowing, not knowledge. Next, the basic assumption and the exclusivity of phenomenology is the structure of intentionality. And I hope I have explained to the best of my ability. Maybe more discussion and derivation is required. The structure of intentionality, which I tried to explain it. But as a researcher, you need to have your own explanation. Of course, within the parameter of phenomenological interpretation, but you should have your own. And the next point, which is a very important, is, friends, that is individuality. And that's why the method on which it depends is called inductive, not deductive. Inductive method of research. Okay. And there are few more basic assumptions. Imaginative free variation. When we were talking about imaginative variations, but it says no, imaginative free variation. And it gives and attaches highest importance to importance of experience. But then there is a question, what is the difference then between then pragmatism and what you call the phenomenalism? And for that, you need to orient yourself with both the perspectives. So experience, but what experience of what? It's an experience-based, even not only perception, you are talking about intuition, then the experience-based intuition. जैसे कहते हैं ना हिंदी में, मुझे ऐसा आभास हो रहा है, मुझे ऐसा प्रतीत हो रहा है, या मुझे ऐसा लगता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, साइंस में कहते हैं कि Henry Becquerel could see the structure of benzene only in dream. ड्रीम इंट्यूशन जिसको कहते हैं. सो एक्सपीरियंस बेस्ड इंट्यूशन को इंपॉर्टेंस देता है, एंड इंट्यूशन बेस्ड परसेप्शन को इंपॉर्टेंस देता है. सो इट अटैचेस importance to both intuition and perception both, but you will have to remember the exclusivity of phenomenology regarding intuition and perception is that it gives importance to experience based intuition and intuition based perception. So now these are the few terminologies that very frequently we'll be using, or you will be coming across when you will be studying phenomenological research. So pure phenomenological research seeks essentially to describe rather than explain. I repeat, and I'm quoting from Husserl. Pure phenomenological research seeks essentially to describe rather than explain, and to start from a perspective free from hypotheses or preconceptions. So no hypothesis, no preconceptions. Why? Because it believes in presuppositionless perception. Therefore, friends, we can say that the purpose of the phenomenological approach is to illuminate the specific. Number one, to identify phenomena through how they are perceived by the actors in the situation. So in the human sphere, this normally translates into gathering deep information and perceptions through inductive and qualitative approaches such as interviews, discussions, and participant observations, and representing it from the perspective of the research participants. Fine. So interviews are very important. Not the structure, but the open one. And preferably if you conduct your interview in a conversational style. So you'll have to acquaint yourself how interviews are conducted in a conversational style. And even if you talk, so interview, conversation, okay, sometimes yes, non-participant observations, not necessarily oblique participant observers. Okay, and sometimes people, work on the basis of this also. Some time you need to organize a focus meeting, like when we were talking about focus group discussion. You have to be very careful when you are trying to analyze the text given by your participants. So text analysis, how it is done. Okay, now what are the steps involved in phenomenological research? So the first is called intuiting. So researchers need to understand the phenomena in totality. Analyzing. At this stage, so after intuiting, when you come to the stage of analyzing, at this stage, the researchers identified the meaning of the phenomenon that has been excavated and explored the relationships and links between the data with existing phenomena. Phenomena is a plural and phenomena is singular, you all know. So that's why I'm using time and again phenomenon. And then the third step comes is called, but it varies from researchers to researcher, phenomenological describing. What happens here at this stage? Researchers communicate and provide a written description of the critical elements that are based on the classification and clustering of the phenomenon. So analysis in phenomenological research is transcription of the data, listening and preliminary grouping. So, I mean, primarily it appears that, oh, what is so exclusive about this? And that's why, particularly as far as the qualitative research methods and methodologies are concerned, you read a number of researches You listen n number of talks, they are helpful, but you really become researcher or you really develop your own insights when you actually conduct the research. And that's why you must know how reduction and elimination is there. So for that, you do thematizing, individual textual description, composite textual description, okay, essence of experience, etc., etc. So there are, friends, many other things that need to be discussed and deliberated. This is one thing I wanted to. Now, what I'll be going to do, as I did yesterday, in rest of 30 minutes, I'll be talking about that how the different researchers have conducted this research and taking a clue from that, right? Uh, Suppose if I'm planning to conduct a research where for me it's very important to understand the phenomenology of research from the perspective of mm, qualitative paradigm. What are the things that I need to do, or what are the things that I can study? So, like, I would like to share some of the materials that you can. There is a, I don't know, phenomenological research using a staged multi-design methodology. Now, what is happening? Though people, I mean, largely they take from that clue, from the Husserl point of view of the phenomenological research, but they do a lot of experimentation. So this article is a very beautiful article, phenomenological research using a staged multi-design methodology. You know? And there, I mean, this author has explained the what do you mean by appropriateness of the phenomenological design. Like, if you have read the book written by Creswell, and he has noted 5 elements pertinent to phenomenological study, that is data analysis providing descriptions of the phenomenon. A table is included showing how the data is used in the descriptive study, and the research questioning is exploratory, and explanatory, descriptive, or emancipatory, but it's more descriptive, not explanatory. And that's why I'm saying within the community of the phenomenologist researchers, you will find a hell lot of, you know, differences are there. Similarly, there is a, uh, very good work, theoretical frameworks, methods, and procedures for conducting phenomenological studies in educational settings. Okay, and this paper was published way back, that how in educational settings you can do this study. And as far as the methodological framework is concerned, you know, mostly people use the phenomenological this. For example, I'll give you an example, that when Max van Manen stated that the essence of a phenomenon is a universal, which can be described through a study of the structure that governs the instances or particular manifestation of the essence of the phenomenon, right? Uh, Similarly, but I'm unable to show you one model uh, where this given by Celsius, which was published in perhaps 10 years back, the phenomenological concept of experience, you know, and where it has been shown that how the texture and the structure is synthesized. So synthesis of meaning and the essence, right? And it's the material, realism, experience, idealism, ideal, and one model is developed. But anyway, I'll be sharing this. And then, as I was quoting Van Manen, because he, considered one of the champions who have conducted maximum of research on lived experiences. So, and as I told you, that the phenomenological research investigates the lived experience of participants with a phenomenon, and therefore it is important to clarify the lived experiences which I did try to do that. Similarly, certain uh, terminologies, and you need to build up your own understanding of those terminology also, not only. But yes, you read Linda Finlay. Linda Finlay has published uh, mm, an article calling "Debating Phenomenological Research Methods." Now, very interesting, all right? That uh, because in this article, rather in this research paper, she has discussed broadly 5 to 6 questions, like how tightly or loosely should we define what counts as phenomenology? Should we always aim to produce a general normative description of the phenomenon, or is idiographic analysis legitimate? Similarly, another question, to what extent should interpretation be involved in our descriptions? Should we set aside or bring to the foreground researcher subjectivity, as we were saying? Okay, should phenomenology be more science and less art? Is phenomenology a modernist or postmodernist project, or it is a neither the uh, modernist project or not the postmodernist project? So please read that Linda Finley's article, and it's a very interesting one. Why I'm saying this, that even if you have decided, if you're ardent champion of a particular research method, you should know, be aware about its criticism. Like I always suggest people, even if you are studying a particular phenomenon from the Marxian interpretation, okay, a point of view, or the Marxist point of view, you should read that how the Marxian ideologies or the Marxian point of view have been criticized. Like there is a famous book called The God Who Failed. 5 6 people have contributed their understanding in that, so you should be aware of that. Like generally people ask me, when I published my book on constructivism, constructivist epistemology and pedagogy, so the last chapter of this book, I have included the understanding or the critiques of those people who have criticized uh, constructivism on the basis of epistemology and the pedagogic discourses. Why? Simply because, like, there is a one thinker called Michael R. Matthews, and he criticizes constructivism like any other thing. He says it's nothing but the old wine in a new bottle. He has gone to that extent. Okay, uh, particularly when people like von Glasersfeld and others, they were advocating the radical constructivism in the field of science and mathematics. So he came out with that idea. So you should be aware of that, right? Uh, so similarly, another work which I wanted to work with you, I mean, discuss with you, that now there is called Delgado. I read Delgado, and Ana Delgado raises question: why include phenomenological analysis in a research method course in the field of social science and education? And she's presented one case in a comparative mode, that why it is important to include that, why we should understand that. Okay, similarly, I was I mean, for this only, like Illinois Press, University of Illinois has also it had some project like phenomenological aesthetics, so research methods in phenomenological aesthetics. Marley Flannery has worked related to that, and I'll say you read that, and there um, uh, Marley Flannery, working in the University of Florida, has talked about theory of mind. and how mind has been perceived. Like we always say, oh, mind is this, we take for granted, and that's why we always bracket it, and we don't discuss and deliberate it. Like, what is the concept of the mind from the phenomenological perspectives? Suppose if I have to understand the and witness the mind as a phenomena. Okay, so I'll suggest you definitely enjoy and write this very much, where the natural attitudes, adiabatic variations, and wonderful article, right? If I could send you uh, transcendental analysis, everything has been included in this article, the phenomenological statics, etc., etc. Similarly, there is a work, Nelms, that phenomenological philosophy and research. That's why I started with that. And there's a phenomenological research method, because we all know that it is a born out of a long tradition of a philosophy that originated in basically in Germany. No? And Germany has always produced wonderful scholars, mm, like Immanuel Kant, Descartes, all great thinkers. So even Husserl, uh, who is generally considered the father of the phenomenological movement. Why I'm saying this, that you should study this, you will be able to understand and capture the mindset of the thinker. Why? Because I believe that mind is not here, mind is out there, in Vygotsky perspective. When I say mind is out there, means your mind is made up of your sociocultural settings, sociocultural perspectives, right? Anyway, uh, and that's why it is important to understand. And as I suggested yesterday, like today also, at least almost all who said that, sir, I would like to conduct ethnographic study. I said, okay, tell me who were the people who have conducted this study, and what was the subject of that study. Like yesterday, Melansky, when I was quoting that in British tradition, is considered the first one who conducted the study in New Papua, one of the islands of the New Papua. But majority of people say this happens. Why this such and such thing happens in a particular paradigm of research, and within that particular paradigm, in a particular methodology, why this happens. So genesis of, and in its historical settings, uh, you should study. And this is what, like, there are n number of terminologies you will find. Okay, like which needs to be understood in totalities. For example, when Spielberg said that the first objective of the phenomenological approach is the enlarging and deepening of the range of our immediate experience. What do you mean by immediate experience? As we're talking about world experience, what do you call world experience and how it is formed? Similarly, immediate experience. So people, keep using such terminologies. And this immediate experience is nothing but the intent of Husserl's motto to the things themselves. No? Uh, And that's why the theoretical background has to be very, very sound. Otherwise, what will happen, as it has happened in positivism, without understanding the genesis, people use a particular one. Well, so similarly, there is a thinker called Spielberg. Spielberg has given a particular method which is purely known as Spielberg's phenomenological method, and it came when, I think, in 90s, 1982, 1980. And he formulated a method from uh, this philosophy, and he has given the steps also, that how to conduct it. That's what I'm saying. Don't read only in general sense. And Spielberg has given, like, investigating particular phenomena is the first step, investigating general essence is the second steps. Okay, The third steps he talks about is the apprehending essential relationship among essences. Third, one, two, three. Fourth is the watching modes of appearing. Then he says fifth is the exploring the constitution of phenomena in consciousness, and saying suspending belief in the existence of the phenomena and interpreting the meaning of phenomena. And he has accepted that there is a general implicit agreement on the practice of the first three, and the other steps were used by a smaller group of the people. And each of the steps, he has explained and elaborated in great uh, length. And that's why, what do you mean by phenomenological intuiting, phenomenological analyzing, or phenomenological describing? Is analysis and description same, or are they different in a phenomenological, within the phenomenological setup of research? So I mean, this way has given. Similarly, in this chapter, I mean, if you read, I'll ask Dr. Gupta to send you this, that when you are talking about the existential inquiry, expressions and processing, what exactly you are supposed to do. And Manhel is another thinker. Manhel came out with his understanding not very late, just I think 7 to 8 years back. And Manhel, according to Manhel, she explicates phases of this stage, like existential inquiry, expressions, and processing. And she has given, the way out, like listen to the self and others, develop heightened attentiveness to the self and others. This is the first. Secondly, she talks about reflect on personal experience and expressions. Then she talks about provide experiential descriptive expressions, that is the experiencer, and provide experiential descriptive expressions, others engaged in the experience. Then provide experiential description, experience in the arts and the literature. Similarly, provide anecdotal descriptive expressions as experience appears, and record ongoing reflection in your own personal journals. And then combining all, you come out with the existential inquiry. So existential inquiry, expressions, and processing. So Manhel, she is also similarly many phenomenological researchers. Okay, uh, um, like when she was asked that, okay, you tell me if I want to see the similarities and differences of the experiences of the experiencer, what should I do? She very clearly says that similarities and differences should show themselves in the narrative. So the differences are what challenge us and make all the difference in meeting the needs. Like, in medical science, particularly in nursing and related to patients, such kind of study is done. Then there is another one, uh, Lincoln and Gover has quoted extensively, right? And Lincoln and Gover, that is called, what is the rigor in phenomenological research? Why it should be done? Okay, and Lincoln Guba, if you read their work, I mean, came around 80s, 90s, uh, very extensively say that, like, what is the truth value or credibility of the existential research? What is the applicability or transferability of the phenomenological research? Similarly, what is the consistency or the dependability of phenomenological research? Or even some people are more concerned about the neutrality or conformability of the phenomenological research. You read the work of Guba and Lincoln in various writings, okay, in 80s came out with this, like where they have talked about the ontological authenticity. And now, when suppose if you come across this terminology, ontological authenticity, what is that? Very simple. The extent to which individual respondents' own constructions are improved, matured, expanded, and elaborated. Or you can say that improvement in respondents' conscious experiencing of the world. Like why consciousness studies are very important, particularly in educational settings. Similarly, you will find some terms called educative authenticity. What is educative authenticity? But such kind of terminology is only you will find in phenomenological research settings, phenomenological research methods. So educative authenticity is the what? Like I have explained ontological authenticity, and Given Lincoln has given that description. Educative authenticity is the extent to which individual respondents' understanding of and appreciation for the construction of others outside their groups are enhanced. That is called educative authenticity. I mean, this is not mine, verse. Similarly, as I said, Manhal also developed a methodological system to address the rigor and merit of phenomenological studies. And she calls it 1P, 10RS. The 1P was the phenomenological node, and the 10RS were the rigor, which consisted of resonance, reasonableness, representativeness, recognizability, raised consciousness, readability, relevance, revelations, and responsibility. And not only that, you will be surprised that list is going on and on. And now she talks about, she has added further the two concepts, richness and responsiveness. So how phenomenological node occurs? So it's not easy. I have seen some PhD thesis. Recently, I have two PhD theses from University of Delhi, my own alma mater. One from Department of Psychology and one from Department of Education. So sometimes what happens, if you are not well oriented to that domain of knowledge, very loosely you use, and you say, oh, my research, which research method you have followed? Phenomenological research method. I remember one conference was organized in India International Center in Delhi, and I had also opportunity to participate in that on phenomenology itself. And he's a very serious researcher, but he works in the area of the social problems, marginalization, etc. You must be aware of the name, but I won't like to quote his name. It doesn't sound good, but I consider him very serious. He writes very well. And the moment he said, it's a phenomenology, like untouchability, the phenomena of the touch. So I remember there was a professor, he objected very sharply. I said, don't use a particular term if you don't understand its meaning in that paradigm, in that context. Okay. So I'll suggest you to read the work of Margaret Sandalowski. Sandalowski came out 1986, and that's a nursing qualitative research expert. She's a nursing qualitative research expert. And she talks about auditability, how auditability is achieved. And she's written that by description, explanation, or justifications of how the researcher became interested in the study topic. See, how the researcher views the things studied, the specific purposes of the study, how participants or pieces of evidence came to be included in the study, and how they were approached. The impact of participants, the evidence, and the researcher had on each other. How the data were collected, how long data, and it means the process of the procedures. So research procedure, no, the process of the research. How long data collection lasted. The nature of the settings. How the data were reduced or transformed from analysis, interpretation, and presentation. How various elements of the data were weighted. and the inclusiveness and the exclusiveness of the categories developed to contain the data. And also the specific techniques used to determine truth value and appreciability. So she's a very particular that, for Sandalowski, auditability is demonstrated primarily in the research report. Like I always, I don't know how far I'll succeed in my life. I always ask my students, you explain the rationale of your objectives, the logic of your objectives. Why you have formulated this objective, why you cannot formulate any other objective. Okay. Anyway, there are a long list of things which need to be discussed and deliberated, and that's why I'll suggest that please read various uh, author about the phenomenological research design. Don't confine to only its theoretical domain, but practically who have conducted and who have come out with the suggestions that what are the things that we need to keep in mind. For example, you can suppose I belong to the field of education, and many I know education people are there. A phenomenological study into how students experience and understand the university system. Do they understand? So you can do a phenomenological study into how students experience and understand the university system as a higher education system. And this study has been done in Michigan University. But of course, the topic was different. It was a phenomenological study into how students experience and understand the university presidency. And see, the entire study is about that only. And it's a thesis, and which was published later on. And Western Michigan University has granted a PhD on that, Doctor of Philosophy, on educational leadership, research, and technology. Can you imagine? So we need to be little, uh, um, um, creative and innovative and challenging as well. But what happens? Because such kind of a study demands whole lot of painful exercises on the part of the researcher. Only then you can understand this. And if you read this thesis, you'll be surprised that in the very beginning, the researcher has claimed that very little is known about how college students experience and understand the university presidency. Why? Because we consider, oh, students are only the consumers of the academic experience. And by affiliation, are so the social distance between students and university presidents continue to narrow. So to address the void in scholarly literature, very clearly this author has written that this study explores how students experience and understand. And would you, I was very happy to see this doctoral thesis. They have given the conceptual framework, participant data, clusters responses frequency, demonstration of the themes, comprehensive conceptual framework. Just read, please read. If you, wherever you get this, please read. And that has, why it is important, this study is important for leadership theory or the student development theory, both. Very good piece of work. Similarly, I'll suggest when people talk about that they understand. There is another Christina Baga in Colombia, University of South Carolina, Colombia. A study has been done, a phenomenological study of the perception of the beginning counselors about the development of the therapeutic alliances over the practicum experience. But in India, such kind of studies are not noticed, not seen. Why? And once the West will be completely exhausted of such a study, then India will borrow the idea and India will start doing this study. In various fields, I'm not saying only in the social science, maybe in the field of psychology, education, medical sciences, etc., etc. Similarly, I will advise to read the work of Stan Lester about the, if you want to introduce yourself to the world of the phenomenological research. Very small article, read that. Similarly, there are from the pedagogical point of view, one study has been done in, I don't remember exactly, but one of my Russian professors told me which university, but actually this has been done by Zeliva, that I know. Pedagogical effects of qualitative research methods in pedagogical training for graduate and postgraduate studies. So, and they have taken focus group and phenomenological interview studies. So it entirely depends on us. It's not that, one lecture or two lectures will help you to make understand it completely. As I have been telling since last 4 days, again, I'm urging you, it will depend on what is your readability, how much you can read and digest. Can you form a small group with, okay, we 5 people for this, we're going to do this. Like specifically for those who are interested to conduct their research in educational research, phenomenology and educational research, read the work of Katrina Adelhirsch. So what happens, whatever is left, in the end we start. But I think that we should start at the early. For example, today we have talked about phenomenological research methodology and hermeneutic phenomenology. There is a study that the title itself is like Phenomenology and Hermeneutic Phenomenology, the philosophy, the methodologies, and the using hermeneutic phenomenology to investigate lecturers' experience of curriculum design. So what is how the professors or the assistant professors or the associate professors, their experiences of curriculum design. You can do the phenomenological study. Okay, I'll keep on talking and talking. I don't want to go on and on. I would like to stop here, friends, and it's over to the organizer. Thank you so much. Is there anyone? Shubham, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Okay, so can we conclude now?
Yes, sir. We can close now.
Okay, thank you. So I'm leaving.
Thank you, sir, for the informative session.